We can take that story further now with the South African Union of Students spokesperson, Asive Dlanjwa, joining us from Bloemfontein in the Free State. A very good evening to you, Asive. Good to have your time. So, as you heard there, NSFAS says that it did consult before the introduction of this new payment system around September last year. So what then is the problem?
Good evening, Butembegela, to you and to your viewers and listeners. All right. The issue, it is correct that NSFAS would have consulted all stakeholders within the sector as it pertains to the direct payment system. And I think when you look at the arguments for the direct payment system on paper, there is no other system that is better than it. What maybe the chair might fail to mention is that of the concessions that were made in those engagements, particularly between the students and NSFAS, not all of them were met. And this is why we find ourselves in the crisis in which we do. I will tell you a few things that are currently causing a crisis. The first one is the issue of charges. We were clear after months of engagements around the charges. Firstly, we had wanted absolutely zero charges, and an argument was made that it will be a bank system, it has to incur some level of cost, and we had agreed that it will be no more than 12 rands. Students have been paying up to more than 100 rands on bank charges, and that is not what we had agreed on, number one. Number two, we had agreed on an interface, on a universal banking system interface for all NSFAS students that would be user-friendly. We even said that it must be zero-rated such that students are able to use it without the necessary data. All of those things have not happened. Each a service provider, which is something also that we are going to speak to, in the manner in which they have been dealing with the students in the respective institutions that they've been given by NSFAS. The system has not been user-friendly, and this is why we are sitting, as per the statement, with 57,835 students as we speak today that still do not have their monies because of the inaccessibility of the system. So on paper, yes, we agreed on direct payment system for a few simple reasons. The first one was that all students would get paid on time, and all students would get paid at the same time, on time and efficiently. That is what we wanted, because, for instance, last year in May, we were sitting with Univen, for instance, with not a single student that had been paid by May their allowances. So we wanted all students to be paid on one day at the same time and on time. And this is why we wanted the direct payment system. Yes.
And on the issue then of payments being made on time, Mr. Khosa said in the briefing today, for example, that one of the major contributors is universities not submitting the relevant information on time. So is NSFAS the issue, or are the institutions causing the blockage?
The higher education system is a very complex system. Unfortunately, it's not necessarily either or, but the chair is not wrong as it pertains to universities. Universities have been, especially vice-chancellors, they're one of the biggest sources of the instability in the sector. Unfortunately, we had been saying this for the longest time before. Up until now, it has demonstrated itself that universities are actually trying to sabotage the direct payment system. Why are they sabotaging Tembegile? I can tell you on authority, and your viewers and your listeners, that there are university officials that have been benefiting directly from the disbursements of allowances. And now that it is centralized, they will forfeit those millions that they've been benefiting. And some of them had been funding ghost students. They would claim for ghost students, and they would pay, working with service providers, they would go on to benefit from that. So this is why the majority of them, we said, for instance, I think last month, with about universities, about one university was sitting at, I think, about 40 or 37% of registration data that they were withholding. Deliberately withholding and not giving it to NSFAS so that the students can receive their allowances. So universities have been a great source of instability, and they are directly contributing to students not getting their allowances. There is absolutely no reason why universities have not been sending the registration data. So they are absolutely to blame as far as this is concerned. There are also other things that Tembegile that I had play here, where other vice-chancellors, as we have said, they're engaging in the business of disbursement, some of these university officials, and also some of them, there seems to be some sort of a political undertone as to how they have been dealing with this situation. So
what do you mean by that? To what end? When you say a political undertone, what is that undertone and what is the desired effect thereof?
two things that show us that. For the first time in the history, including during FISMAS4, in the history of the struggle for free access to higher education, for the struggle for free and decolonized education, we have never seen vice-chancellors standing on the side of the students. We are now seeing vice-chancellors issuing political statements regarding, for instance, the issue of disbursements, denouncing what they call late payments of disbursements. And yet last year, not a single institution had been able to pay students and on time. You remember, you used to ask us this question all the time. There would be protests to media regarding NSFAS, and universities were 100% directly responsible for those disbursements. All of a sudden, the universities are now issuing political statements. One. Number two, we have never seen vice-chancellors hiring buses themselves for students to go and protest at the union buildings at the height of FISMAS4. So there are also political undertones. There are also some of the service providers. We know because some of the SRC presidents have told us on record that their vice-chancellors have offered them, one of them, which we will not mention on air, while an SRC president was offered 1.2 million by their vice-chancellor to mobilize students and try to get that direct payment system based on what the vice-chancellor had been getting from one of the service providers, which I will not mention, that took NSFAS to court.
But that's a serious allegation, Asive. When that happened, what you're alleging, what action was taken? Was it reported to the authorities, for instance?
It is difficult, some of the things, Butembekile, to report, for instance, because all we have here, it is the confession, if you like, in confidence of an SRC president who is under duress, who feels that their lives might even be at risk if they do not mobilize students to go to union buildings because of the pressure that the vice-chancellor. So there are also issues of safety. But I would never, because I have never, by the way, on a public platform such as this, I would never make claims that are unsubstantiated. Obviously, the extent to which we are able to take the necessary steps, and in fact it will, not that it's a matter of time. The steps will be taken, but we have to guarantee that some of the student leaders that have come forward in a form of whistleblowing, that we are able to protect them because they have come to us in confidence. So it's a matter of time. You will definitely begin to see action being taken, or rather a process beginning to unfold as to the vice-chancellors that have been directly responsible for the crisis that we are seeing in the sector.
How long do we have to wait until you then expose these VCs and other university officials who you say are deliberately ensuring that this system fails?
You did not have to wait long. For instance, I have told you now you did not know it. So you can best believe that slowly, I did not know this information, or rather, you did not know this information today. We have known it for some time. But based on the fact that we must be able to ensure the protection and the safety of the student leaders that have come forward, so we will do that all within reasonable time frames, as we now believe that it is now time for us to come forward and confront the vice-chancellors for the instability that they are sponsoring in the sector. As and when, honestly, Butembekile, I would be misleading you and your viewers, but I can almost guarantee you that such revelations and us being able to expose that and even reporting it to authorities, that will be done, obviously, as I have said, within the confines of ensuring that the student leaders that have come forward are safe. I can tell you, for instance, we're at TUT, once we were at Durban, there were people that were carrying guns in meetings, in NSFAS meetings around accommodation. So the sector that we are in is not a very light sector. There is serious, obviously, threats, one, to the student leaders, and maybe some officials, etc. We have seen also what is happening in Forte. So we don't take it lightly, the safety of our students. We are not going to, for sensationalization, mention names of students, and then we see what has happened in Forte happening to them. We can't allow that.
Asive Dlanjwa, as soon as you're able to give us those names, we'll be in touch with you here at Newzroom Africa. Thank you so much for speaking to us from the SA Union of Students.